Hi there, I'm Nu-Trix, and today we're looking into the latest version of Pigments from Arturia. They are now at version number 5. Of course, if you don't know Pigments, let's start with just explaining what it is. It is one of the best flagship soft synth that you can have today. Depending on what you want to do, this thing can do almost everything. It's a synthesizer that has virtual analog if you want. So the 1, 2, and 3, you can change the shape. You can have all the control that you expect out of virtual analog. You also have a wavetable synthesis built in with a lot of controls and modulation. You have sample playback and sample manipulation, I would say. You have harmonics. You have 4 different engines you can use. You can have 2 of them running at the same time, plus the utility engine, which brings mostly weird noise and stuff like that. And today there's a new thing. Utility engine can also have audio input. So now you could use Pigments as an effect processor. Keep in mind that Pigments has most of what you find in all of the software from Arturia. What I mean by that is that Arturia has a huge bank of soft synth. If you look at the bundle that you have for analog synthesizers, you have, a replication of the MS-20, the Jupiter, and I mean, there's just a huge amount of soft synth in there. And you will find these things back here in the filter. If you turn on the filter, you have the MS-20 filter, the SEM filter, the Matrix 12 filter, the Jupiter 8, the Mini Moog, there's a bunch of them. And basically, these are algorithms that you have in the soft synth that they sell, and also that exist in different effects. There's plugins that they have. There is basically the Jupiter filter, the Matrix 12 filter, the MS-20 filter. So this is kind of everything that Arturia has virtually into one single synthesizer. What's new about it? Well, of course, there's a little bit of UI that is better. The audio in that you can then use this as a processor if you want to. Play window, and you play. You see there's a graphic, so it becomes a bit more fun to look at. And you have just the main information that you can play with. Really quickly, just do some edits. If you go into the wavetable, there's new wavetables, and there you can really select Pigments 5, and you just look, there's just a bunch of them. There's really a lot of new source waveform to play with. There's also new samples that have been brought in. If you go into the settings, you can enable MPE settings. If you have an MPE controller, you can adapt the way Pigments will react to your controller. I don't have one, but this is where you would go to change it. So it means that also now there's 3 new banks that will be dedicated to represent or show what you can do with the MPE controllers. I won't be able to demo them because I don't have the control. If we say synthesis and filters and samples, anybody can answer, well, I have another synth that does that. Of course, if you look on a piece of paper, most of them do that today, or flagship synthesizer, soft synth, do that today. Still, the way this one is packaged is really cool and really aimed at people making synthesis, people sound designing. I love creating my own sound or taking a sound that exists and pushing it somewhere else. So I love playing with the synthesis aspect of things more than sampling. Of course, presets are fun to start with, but I really don't like to use the preset as is. I prefer modifying it. It might be an obsession for me, but that's how I am. The synthesis part of this is really powerful, and it comes to the fact that you have at the top the whole synthesis engine, the 2 engines, plus the utility engine, plus the filters, the routing, the amp, all this that. But the row that is in the middle, that's where everything happens. All the different sources of controls or modulation are here. You got the keyboard, you get the envelope, 3 of them, you get the LFO, 3 of them, you get the functions, 3 of them, you get random, you get 3 of them, and you get combinate, so you can combine different function and remat. So it's really powerful. Then you've got the 4 macros are here that can be assigned to knobs. Turn one knob and affect many things at the same time. control. If you never know how to use this, if you never use them, and you see the visual reaction of everything here. So let's say I'm going to assign the keyboard, and I want to assign the keyboard to control the cutoff. And on the side here, when you get a little arrow like that. See, now I press higher keys, it opens up. You see the little arrow here. And I play lower keys, it goes lower. If I go again, at the same time, you actually see it on screen. So you see the notes here. You can go high in notes, lower notes. So it's really quick to just click on something. Envelope, you want it to be sent to something. You just click on envelope and you go assign and say, I want this to move. No, you actually go on the side here and you move this. So now this will change with envelope A. If you see envelope is here, envelope, and go, oh, I have this. I want this to go like that. And then you see the phases changing at the same time. You see this little value here. So really quick to edit, and that's what really is wonderful about this. And it's easy and quick to do the editing. If you do something and you go, I don't like it, there's an undo, and there's an history of what you just did. So this is pretty cool, because sometimes I like the sound like a minute ago. It was better and I pushed too far, and you can just click, 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 go back to the history. So this is, again, a really cool thing when you design sound. Of course, one of the things is just save with a new name and just have multiple versions until you find the sound you want. But in this case, if you didn't save, you can just go back, and this is really, really cool. Now, what's great about Pigments 5 is what they added to the sequencer. Now, the sequencer makes this into a totally different, device. It truly is amazing. Let's just try to have something with, let's say, bass. Okay, we'll start with this one. Okay, so you see you have only the sound, you have what's happening here, and I'm just pressing one key. So the arpeggiator, you can have the arpeggiator or you can have the sequencer. So arpeggiator, it's this window here, and the sequencer is this whole section here. And this is really powerful. Of course, arpeggiator is what we expect. We just click and we decide up, down, a rate. You want it to be fast. You want to be a different mode, backward, forward, backward. You want to be using polymetry. Reset every 1 bar. So it's quick, easy, and fun to play with. Now let's go into sequencer instead. Now this is something that's a lot more complex than before. I'm not a good keyboard player. I play with my hands, but I'm not a great keyboard player. So what I like to do is to trigger arpeggiators and little sequences, and that's how I perform in real time what's happening. Still, I just love controlling it. And this makes it that Pigments become a really powerful, small, sequencer, but with a lot of possibilities in this. And that's where you'll see it's really powerful, because it's not just a step sequencer that does always the same thing. You can actually have different level of randomization, and that's where it's really interesting. For all the different aspects of the sequencer, you can change the tempo for each of them separately. You can change the ending of the length of the sequence for each of these different controls, of these different tracks separately. And you can lock some of these step so they don't change and everything else change. So this is also really deep and fun. And if you want, you can auto-generate this, and you can even force the sequencer to be inside a certain scale. So this is just like, okay, this is really fun for me. I find it, if you follow my YouTube channel, you know that in the last year I've been like flipping with something like the MIDI cake. I really enjoy the way this helps me easily create other notes and playback around the notes that I have in my head. So I find it really inspiring to have these way of creating these rhythms and notes and riffs. And this is built into Pigments. It's not the same thing, but I mean, it's the same concept of helping me getting into something interesting. So you can go into classic, you know, the scales, or you can have those that they have. And you see at the bottom, this is the notes that are selected, and also how much, you know, velocity for each of them, you know, very loud. And you can even customize and have your own. You can say these are the notes I want to play, and it's going to stay into these depending on what you have played here. So you're basically placing the notes inside an octave here. And then you can say, well, I want to change an octave higher, lower, same, higher. So I'm just going to change this. So this, if you play like that, it's going to be always the same, in this case, 16 notes it's going to play. But if I go here, I could actually say, well, this, instead of being 16, I'm going to take this. That's it. You can say, I want to change, and I'm only going to play, I don't know, 7 steps. And this is going back and forth because this is how this one is made. So this is actually pretty interesting. And you can say this, I want this to be changing by itself. So it's going to be randomizing this lane as it goes. It can even auto-generate this if you want. Every bar, every 16th of a bar, you know. This is really fun. I'm gonna turn it off for now. This is just gonna play like that. But then I can actually say, well, I want to, like, this is which one are we playing. But the same thing if you go probability and you bring it to 80. Change this. So I can say, well, I also want it to be at a different speed. So it's half the speed of the sequence, you know? So it means that you can have the pitch changing every note, every step, but you can have the octave change. I can have, let's say, I have a very simple 4, and I only have simply these 4, but then because it's divided by 4, it takes like 2 whole 16 notes before this changes the whole thing. You see? It plays once. Okay, gate length, same thing with gate length. You can have this randomize. I'm gonna say acid. I'm gonna say regenerate every 1 bar. I say, no, I don't want this. And go, okay, go back to the original. You can turn these on. If you don't know what's one value is doing, go here and you look at the bottom, say snap to scale, enable to force the note to the active scale. If you don't turn it on, it will not force it. But let's say we do. Press it. Let's say don't want probability to change. I want everything to play. And I want it to be normal. Let's say I have 1, 5, 9, and 13. These won't change. And I don't want -1. Let's say we divide it by 4, and we get rid of the gate length, and we say this is going to be only 2, and this is going to be short, this is going to be long. You see, it's really quick to do these things and really fun. So your sequence can easily become very complex and kind of evolving with you, especially if you play with, let's say I have an odd number instead of an even number. Like this one, if I go like, okay, it's going to be 13 instead, and then, so this changing value will be different every time we come back. Take this one and say like this. It might be bizarre in this case because I'm having way too much fun, but you understand this is really, really powerful. Let's try another one. Now, the other thing that's interesting is you can actually go into presets and load preset of sequence. So you can easily just create the one you like and bring them back if you like it. Let's say we change. Okay, this is your arpeggio going. So the sequencer instead. Okay, like this, pretty cool. So a preset, you go, okay. Let's start with the bottom, just try the other one. And if you look after, a little bit of probability here, what you could play or not. Everything's unlocked here. A little bit of octave movement here. So that's, for me, in a nutshell, what Pigments 5 brings new to the table. The sequencer with probability, randomization for all the different tracks. It's just exactly what the doctor ordered for this year. New songs. That's it. Stay safe, make more music, and see you soon. Cheers.